Welcome, folks, to the 23rd episode of No Conference for Old Men, the podcast where three old guys are talking Houston Cougars basketball with a bit of Big 12 coverage added in as well, and proud members of the GoCoogs.com network, the undisputed number one Houston Cougars content provider. Our Houston Cougars are now 32-4 and into the Sweet 16 for the fifth straight year after surviving yet another furious comeback attempt by A&M in our second time around playing them this year. Lots of fans were fearful of the matchup with A&M, especially after all the injuries on our roster with our bigs. I was not one of them, but in retrospect, I think the fans were apparently correct in those fears. 4 of our starters fouled out, yet we still pulled out the win in overtime 100-95, with even walk-on Ryan Elvin hitting a key free throw near the end. But we'll get into that a little bit later on in the podcast. But the bottom line was we survived and advanced. And again, all three of us are back with Tom Lydiak, former coach, Bill Walker, former player, and myself, Steve Chang, analytics guy for this episode. So we'll begin by summarizing first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, providing obviously a little bit more detailed view into the A&M game, forecast our Sweet 16 matchup versus Duke, then maybe a brief forecast of who we believe the winner will play in the Elite Eight, provide comments on how our brackets have fared thus far, and share our reforecast of the Sweet 16 through championship winner. Okay, let's get into it, guys. We breezed through Longwood and then engaged in an epic battle with a rematch with A&M. How about just 2 quick tidbits on the Longwood win and then go straight into your assessment of the A&M win? Tom, why don't you kick things off with your coach's thoughts on our first 2 rounds in the NCAA tourney?
Longwood, I think we doubled them up. It was like 86-43, I believe it was. I think the big story was getting back Ramon Walker from that torn meniscus. I was one who thought he would never come back, and I know Chris Baldwin had put some stuff on social media that it was possible for him to come back, and I was negative about that. I was thinking no way, but here he is, came back and got some playing time in the Longwood game. The other story was Juwan coming down and limping again. I think he was limited. I can't remember how many minutes it was. It wasn't a whole lot. And then, Ryan gets in the game. Ryan Elvin actually played over 6 minutes in the game and scored 5 points. And I was thinking, that's a great memory for him, unbeknownst that there were bigger things for Ryan just coming 2 days later. So, we took care of business and got out of that game with really no major injuries except for the little tweak to Juwan. So another workmanlike performance by the Cougs.
And how about you keep going with the A&M game? Tom?
A&M game, it was kind of like the first time we played them. What we had biggest lead was 13 points. A lot of fouls were called in the game. A&M missed a whole lot of free throws. We gave up a lot of offensive rebounds again. But bottom line is, I think it was just like the OU game. How many people thought we could win a game like 88, 86 or whatever it was in the OU game? If somebody would have said A&M was going to score 95 points, and granted it was in overtime, I would say, hey, it's a loss. But that's probably the guttiest performance I've ever seen in my 50-something years of watching college basketball. There's no other team in the country that could have won that game in overtime like the Houston Cougars did. 4 guys foul out. I think Jamal fouled out with like 18 seconds left. Yeah. And Kelvin had to put in Ryan Elvin. But like I said, gutty performance, culture, whatever you want to call it. Our culture was personified in that game.
How about you, Bill?
Okay, Longwood. I mean, this was an ideal game. No starters reached 30 minutes. We shot 58.5% from the field, 48% from 3. Dunn and Wilson played well off the bench. Each played 23 minutes. We forced 18 turnovers. We held them to 34% shooting. Ryan Elvin outscored 3 of their starters. We created 12 steals. We held them under their Las Vegas total of 51 points. Sed had 3 blocks. But clearly dwarfing everything was the fact that Ramon came back and played and looked good, played aggressively, and he's available going forward. So nice win there. A&M, God, what a crazy game. I mean, if if you're an adrenaline junkie, this was the game for you. And it's all sorts of comments about people not being able to go to sleep last night after the game. And yeah, I completely understand. I was kind of stunned when TCU got off 73 shots against us in the Big 12 tournament, and then A&M gets off 75 last night.
Yeah.
I was also stunned at all the fouls that were called when we were at home against UCF and Oklahoma State, letting both of them back into the game. But, my God, 4 out of 5 starters foul out, and the 5th starter, Jawan, played over 9 minutes, the 5 minutes of overtime, and over 4 minutes in regulation after picking up the 4th foul. And
yeah, incredible.
I've just never seen anything like that. It's just unbelievable. And I actually talked because there was so much of the people I was with, including myself, everyone was furious with the officials. But it ended up being 28-24 in terms of fouls. And so I talked to some people who are not U of H fans.
That was misleading, though, right?
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask them. I wanted to get some input from someone who is non-biased. And every single one of them, not one person said that the officiating was down the middle or anything other than the fact that U of H really kind of was getting the short end of the stick from the officials. Yeah. And like I said, I don't want to come on and bitch about the officiating, but the people have no affiliation with U of H. We're like, geez, you guys were really getting the short end of the stick with the calls. And I mean, yeah, we lose 4 out of 5 starters and we virtually lose 5. It's crazy. I mean, it was an extremely physical game played by 2 extremely athletic and aggressive teams. But I mean, 52 fouls is
it's
a little
ridiculous.
Crazy. I hope this crew is done officiating for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the game, Roberts went 6 for 6. He didn't shoot a lot, but he hit all his shots, scored 13 points, had 8 boards. But this game was really won by our guards. Cryer was cold early, but he stepped up in the second half. He scored 20, 4 assists, 3 boards before fouling out. Sharp was absolutely key for us the entire game. 30 points, 7 of 14 threes, 3 boards, 2 steals before fouling out.
Yeah.
Wilson came off the bench, scored 9, pulled down 6 boards as he does in virtually every game. He defended their guards well, but the star clearly was Shed, is often the case. I mean, 21 points, 10 assists, 5 boards. He forced Wade Taylor into going 5 of 26 from the field, 3 of 13 from 3. A far cry from his 28-point second half versus us back in mid-December. Cryer came up big in OT before he fouled out. And then Shed continued getting the ball to people. Shed hit a big shot, proved why he's almost assuredly going to come in second place to Purdue's Zach Edey in Player of the Year voting. We were out-rebounded by a really good rebounding team, the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the nation, 49-35, 26-11 on the offensive boards. But the thing is, we're not going to see those types of players, that type of team, when we go up against Duke or NC State or Marquette or any team in the Midwest as well. We got through it, and like you said, we survived and advanced. We'll be able to rest until Friday, and I think we're looking really good heading into the weekend.
Nice. So I know you didn't want to complain about the officiating. I'm actually going to get into it a little bit.
Good.
Hey, about those 3 refs, they're all advancing to the next round.
I saw as well.
Yeah.
I've got some thoughts on those a little bit later in my assessment here. But, quickly from a round 1 perspective, Longwood was just completely overmatched from beginning to end. As you guys stated, it was no competition from the very get-go. We limited them to under 38% effective field goal percentage, turnovers on almost 30% of their possessions, and blocked 18% of their 2-point shots. While on offense, we were at a blistering 69% effective field goal percentage. Best thing that could have happened where Roberts only played the first half, and as you highlighted, no other starter hit 30 minutes, allowing everyone to be rested while backups played a lot, which would end up being key in our A&M win. For the Texas A&M game, an epic game that will go down as one of our most all-time best wins given the circumstances. I predicted on GoCoogs.com that this would be a 12-point win for us, and we'd limit them to under 43% effective field goal percentage, which looked great at the 2-minute mark in regulation. This was a nip-tuck game for the entire first half, with us just ahead, leading 43-38 at the half. We then slowly pulled away in the second half until we were up 12 with just under 2 minutes to go. The real story to me, unfortunately, was how poorly officiated this game was, where it ended up actually shaping this game into the epic one that it became. 52 fouls called total for such a physical game on both sides. Calls were very one-sided until A&M was forced to foul towards the end of both regulation and overtime. As stated by both of you, 4 of our starters fouled out. A few key ref misses I will highlight that were particularly egregious. I mean, Francis's 4th foul underneath the basket when 4 players were jockeying for position, and it was either actually Wilson or one of their own players that pushed Radford at the 8:48 mark in regulation. That was just a terrible call. No foul called, right, on pushing Cryer out of bounds at the 1:14 mark, as well as he was trying to bring the ball up. A moving screen by Garcia to keep Wilson from getting to Taylor's 3 at the 1:12 mark. And then, LJ Cryer's last foul when it was a clean block of Taylor's 3 at the 56-second mark towards the end. And then that terrible phantom jump ball called when Malik Wilson solely had the rebound at the 1 second mark that gave them a chance at the miracle 3 to send it in overtime. Then into overtime, Shedd's final ticky-tack foul at the 18-second mark. I mean, the refs did everything they could to basically advance the SEC team, quite honestly. One note for fans, in the 2 games that UH got called for the most fouled during the regular season, Lee Castle was a ref at Xavier and Jeb Hartness was at TCU. Those were the worst calls games during the regular season. Yesterday versus A&M, both of them were part of the referee officials. Both of them, as Tom had mentioned, have made it to the Sweet 16 as part of the reffing crew. I just hope we get neither one of them in our games moving forward.
Yeah, send them east.
Oh, my God.
Let Denny Hurley deal with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, it was hard to pinpoint the star of the game since everyone, including Ryan Elvin, contributed big time. Kempom highlighted Sharp as the MVP of the game for UH, which is really hard to argue with the 30 points. As you had highlighted, Bill, 7 of 14 from 3 rebounds, 1 block, 2 steals for the game. He's a player box score plus minus plus 18.6, way beyond anyone on either team. But we've all talked about wanting that game where all 3 of our guards had a big offensive game. Well, we got it at the most critical time. Cryer, who started slow, ended up with 20 points, as you highlighted. Shedd, who had the play of the game with the offensive rebound, 2-handed putback dunk at the 12:25 mark of the second half, had 21 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists. Unfortunately, Francis only played 19 minutes before fouling out. And man, we just need him in the game more because he disrupts things inside. And he had 5 blocks for the game in only 19 minutes. But boy, Ramon Walker came up huge in overtime. He checks in after Sharp fouls out in overtime. Hadn't played at all yet this game. Comes in confident and aggressive. Grabs a huge defensive rebound at the 2:51 mark in OT. Then another offensive rebound and putback at the 1:11 mark. Then, of course, Ryan Elvin with his free throw near the end after Shedd fouled out. And that was just the final cherry on top. Epic win that will never be forgotten in Houston Cougars lore. Now, from an advanced analytics perspective, on offense, we played a stellar game. Best game for our big 3 guards in the same game all season. And given the situation in a tight NCAA game against the hated Aggies, it was extremely timely. Our effective field goal percentage was a staggering 60%, which is even better than our 52.3% versus KU to end the season. Again, we continue to protect the ball extremely well with turnover percentage at 12.6%, which bettered our standard for the season. And our offensive rebound was actually decent given how tough a rebounding team A&M is. On D, we just found a way to get enough stops. I predicted we'd keep them under 43% effective field goal percentage, and it was looking great again until towards the end. But even for the whole game, A&M still only shot a dismal 44% effective field goal percentage, which is right at our standard for the year, and only 40% from 2-point range. We also blocked 15.4% of their 2-point shots at standard and altered a ton more, especially when Francis was in. We only forced turnovers on 12.6% of their possessions, which isn't to our standard. But the new stat that I will introduce today, which I have not emphasized to this point, is a stat that they call free throw percentage defense. It's actually a major advanced analytics stat that KenPom emphasizes that I've really dismissed up to this point. However, after a full season of watching, the take is that we exhaust our opponents during the game, so much so that it impacts their ability to hit their free throws at their normal rates. And A&M shot a dismal 64.4% from the line. And that's just slightly below our number 7th ranked free throw percentage D of 67.5%. Our main issue on D was keeping them off the offensive rebounds, where they got 53% of their misses, which is what allowed them to make a game of it. But again, survive and advance. Now it's on to the Sweet 16 versus Blue Blood Duke. It's who we all wanted, so here we are. Bill, why don't you kick things off on this one? What are your thoughts on the upcoming Duke game this Friday?
Well, I didn't want Duke. I wanted Vermont. But that aside, Duke is 26-8 right now. They came in second in the ACC. They're one of 3 teams in what I've referred to over and over as an overrated ACC. One of 3 teams that have made it to the Sweet 16.
I know.
But if you look at the draws for Duke, Carolina, and Clemson, the draws have set up pretty well for all 3. Duke finished out ACC play winning by 15 at NC State and losing by 5 at home versus Carolina. And then they lost by 5 to NC State in the ACC tournament before beating number 13 seed Vermont by 17, followed by a 38-point demolition of number 12 James Madison. U of H is going to be a different story and a massive leap up in talent. As an aside, and you guys know this, prior to last season, we had and I'm saying this with air quotes, a secret scrimmage because everyone knew about it, knows about it, at U of H versus Duke. And because of the fact that we were beating them so badly, not only score-wise, but physically, they shut down the scrimmage, and they're not a physical team. One other thing that was mentioned to me, my good friend Luis Puente, it was that Duke has not beaten a higher seed, and thank you again, Luis, in 30 years. This goes back to 94 when they were a 2 seed and they beat Purdue and Glenn Robinson. Since then, they have not beaten a higher seed, and not that I want to jinx us in any way, but quite honestly, I don't think that statistic will even matter. It'll continue the streak. In that blowout of James Madison, they really only played 7 players until late in the game. They shot 52% from the field, 50% from 3, including 30 points from their 6'3" freshman, Jared McCain, who went 10 of 15 from the field, 8 of 11 from 3. But we'll take a look at Duke for the entire season. Their best player is Kyle Filipowski. He's listed at 7 feet, 16.6 and 8.2 boards per game, 1.2 steals, 1.6 blocks, all-team highs, 51% from the field and 35% from 3. He'll be a tough matchup. Mark Mitchell's their other starting front court forward, 6'9", 12 points, 6 boards, 54% from the field. He'll be shooting inside. The aforementioned Jared McCain, 6'3", he scored 14 points during the year, 5 boards, but 46.5% from the field, 41.5% from 3. And they brought him in. He's a freshman. They brought him in as a shooter. Jeremy Roach is their point guard. That's who Shed will play.
Yep.
14 points, 3 boards, 48% and 44% from 3. And then Tyrese Proctor, another guard, 6'5", 11 points, 4 assists. He's an okay shooter, not especially good. Short of fouls, these 5 will be playing the entire game for Duke. These 5 play a ton of minutes, and they just don't have a whole lot off the bench. They score 80 a game, Duke. They give up 66.5, so they're strong both offensively and defensively, which you'd expect from team in the Sweet 16. All their losses this year have been by single digits. They've not had a double-digit loss yet. They said they're a very good perimeter shooting team, but they're really only okay athletically. They're not that physical, and assuming fouls are not an issue, they're nowhere close to being as athletic as we just faced with A&M.
Yep.
We should be okay to get off shots. We'll be able to rebound effectively, and I see us winning this game 76-62.
Wow, so their first double-digit
Correct.
loss then. Yeah.
Well, we're by far the best team they've played this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. So I know you did a bit of homework on potential next round opponents too. You want to provide an overview of those two teams as well?
Yeah, sure. I could jump into them right now. Once we beat Duke, we play the winner of NC State and Marquette. NC State, the 11th seed, who has upset a couple of teams, including Texas Tech, and then Marquette, the 2 seed in our region. State came in 10th in the ACC, and they're only in because they won the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
Like I said, they beat Tech by 13, and then they beat number 14 Oakland by 6 in overtime. They're an okay offensive team. They're kind of a mediocre defensive team, especially based on who's left in the tournament. They score 76.5 points a game. They give up 72.5. They're a fair shooting team, 45% from the field, 35% from 3. Not a great rebounding team, and they do turn the ball over. Their best player is 6'1" DJ Horn, 17 points. He shoots 44% from the field, 40% from 3. And it's just crazy, with the potential of not the potential, but once we beat Duke, either NC State or Marquette, it's going to be the best player on both teams is the point guard. So it's going to be more hard work for Shed, but that also means trouble for the opposing point guards.
Exactly.
Casey Morrell is a 2 guard. He scores 12 points a game. He's not a very good shooter. He's a strong guy. He'll play sharp. Michael O'Connell is a 6'2" guard. He can kind of play the point. I'm sure Cryer will probably play him. He leads them in assists, but it's only like a little over 3. The guy that everyone's been following with NC State is DJ Burns.
Yeah.
Listed at 6'9" and 275. To me, he looks more like about maybe 6'7", 6'8", maybe he's 6'9", but I'd change that 2 to a 3. I mean, he is enormous.
He is.
With that said, 13 points, only 4 boards, but he does average 3 assists, a couple of turnovers a game.
Yeah.
And he shoots 53% from the field. He can pass the ball well. He's actually got reasonably quick feet.
He does. I'm amazed at how well he moves.
But the thing is, when he gets double teamed, he can make good passes, but he can also throw the ball away. And so when we double him, which we will do, he's going to turn the ball over. And then the other guy that starts and has been good is Mohamed Diarra, 6'10", forward.
Yeah, he's good.
Leads them with 8 boards, shoots 49% from the field, 34% from 3. He could step up. He's a good athletic player.
Yeah.
Shed's going to battle Horn, and I like that matchup for us. Sharp will outplay Morcell. Juwan and Javier will match up well with Burns, Diarra, and then they've got a guy, Middlebrooks, who comes off the bench when Burns needs to go and, hit the oxygen tank. They've had a nice run, but it's probably going to end against Marquette. It will absolutely end if they play us. If it is them, I see us beating them 74-57. Marquette, on the other hand, 27-9. They tied for second in the Big East. Right now, they've beaten number 15 Western Kentucky by 18. They beat number 10 Colorado yesterday, only by 4 points, 81-77. They only played 6 players against Colorado, which was interesting. They're a good team as well at both ends of the floor, no surprise. But they're not that big, and they're not a great rebounding team, and that will play into our hands. Duke, NC State, and Marquette all start 3 guards, which I think also benefits us. Marquette, early in the year, they took apart Kansas. They crushed Texas, and they lost to Purdue and Hawaii by 3 points. So they're a good team. They deserve their 2 ranking. They play an up-tempo game. So, if we protect the ball and we rebound well, especially on the offensive end, we're going to make things really hard for them in terms of getting out in transition. They're led by Tyler Kolek. We've talked about him before. We've compared him to Shed. We all know that Shed's the better player. Kolek came back recently from injury. He missed the end of the season, missed the Big East tournament, and is back for the NCAAs. He scores a little over 15 points, 5 boards, 8 assists, 3 turnovers, 50% from the field, 40% from, and the media loves him.
Yeah.
Their leading scorer is almost at about 18 a game is Cam Jones. He's a 6'5" guard, 50% from the field, 41% from 3. He will score. He's a good player. I'll just mention 2 others. Oso Ighodaro, 6'11" forward, 14 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, but he also turns the ball over. He's a pretty athletic and talented big guy. And then David Joplin, a 6'8" forward, who only scores 11 points, 4 boards, but he's really come on lately. He started shooting well from 3. He only shot 42% from the floor and 37% from 3 during the year, which isn't bad, but he's been shooting well in the postseason. So this is an athletic team, but they're not overly physical, especially inside. The key matchup for everyone is going to be Kolek versus Jamal. And the thing that killed Colorado was that Kolek is left-handed. They could not keep him from going left, which I just could not understand. But we keep him from going left. He's limited. He's also slow defensively, and they can often put him on another guard or even a small forward. But in this case, it's where do you put him if he's not on Shed? Are you going to run him through a myriad of picks trying to chase Cryer? Are you going to have him play against a much more physical Emmanuel Sharp? Absolutely not. So he's going to play against Shed, and Shed can just take advantage of him off the dribble. Get to the hoop and create for himself, or he can lay the ball off to Juwan. He can put the ball up for alley-oops from Javier, or he can kick it to the other guards, to Sharp or Cryer. If we defend Kolek well, we defend Jones, and I think Emmanuel is probably going to have that task, but it'll also be Wilson. If we play well against Jones, we play well against Kolek, and we defend guards well, we're going to win this game. We're absolutely going to win this game. I have us winning 77-66.
Okay, Tom, from a coach's perspective, what are your thoughts on the Duke game? And if you've got any thoughts on the next round Elite Eight game as well, why don't you share them with the listeners?
U of H Duke game, we win. U of H wins simply because we're the tougher team. Duke's talented, but they're soft. We know about the scrimmage, and we can kind of figure out why the scrimmage was halted with like 12 minutes left. Also, we're not going to lose to a guy who paints his fingernails. Jared McCain. No.
We recruited him pretty hard.
Yeah, and maybe that's why he didn't come to U of H and Kelvin, is that Kelvin said, we ain't doing that shit,
Exactly.
Like Bill alluded to, anytime we play teams where their strengths are the guards, we do pretty well because of our guards. They got McCain and Roach. But I think they're just, the tougher team's going to win. We're the toughest team in the country. Duke had that whole court storming thing where they made a big deal about it. You know what? Larry Bird would have punched his way through that crowd. And John Shire up there is almost in tears and all this. And then they had another situation where, Duke loses to UNC on their home court, and Shire goes over there and he's apologizing to some Duke students for losing while some Duke students are throwing water bottles at UNC. It just, to me, that just screams soft.
Yeah.
We're not going to lose to a team like that. I don't care how talented they are. NC State Marquette, I think Marquette wins. I think NC State's bubble has finally burst. I think just simply put, Marquette's just a better team.
Yeah.
DJ Burns, really, really good, as you guys alluded to, on offense. But if you ever watch him on defense in a pick and roll, it's hilarious. They play so-called drop coverage.
Yeah.
What he does, he basically has his hands on his hips and he's resting.
I love it.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
I sound like I'm joking, but they'll set a ball screen and he's in drop coverage and he's straight-legged and he's resting. And if that's Kolick, they dice him up. But
hey, that's ACC basketball, right? Nice and soft.
Nice, yeah.
They've got 3 in the Sweet 16.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe it. Cannot believe it.
Yeah.
I can't either.
Yeah,
I'm very disappointed with Baylor. I mean, it never bothers me when Baylor loses, but man, when you're representing the Big 12 to lose to Clemson, I cannot believe it.
In that Baylor game, I heard the announcers say something like Bridges was banged up. I didn't realize that he had some injury. That's all the announcer said was.
I mean, he just fell. I mean,
he got hurt and he walked off, and they took him off the court into. And I think he may have gone into the locker room, but then he was back on the court within about 3 minutes. I mean, it was really quick.
I think it's because he changed his haircut. I didn't, the first time he had his hair different. I
did he? I didn't notice.
I was like, "Where's Bridges at? Where's he at?" Well, he was on the court, but he kind of had a disappearing act. Last couple of games there because when we played him, those guys were on fire.
Yeah.
Offensively, but you never know what's going to happen in March Madness. But getting back to the NC State Marquette game, Marquette's. I'm sure NC State's going to put up a fight, but in the end, Marquette's just a better team, and then going to set up a good matchup, 1 versus 2 seed, U of H and Marquette, and I think we'll find a way to win that game too.
Awesome. From an advanced analytics perspective, we're number 2 in KenPom. Duke is number 6. If you look from an adjusted offensive efficiency perspective, we're now 14th in the country, while Duke is 19th in adjusted defensive efficiency. On the flip side, we're number 2 in adjusted defensive efficiency, while Duke is number 5 in adjusted offensive efficiency. On D, though Duke is ranked 19th, they don't do any one particular thing exceptionally well. No key defensive stat for Duke hits our threshold of great, being in the top 40 in the country. Highest ranked D stat for them is offensive rebound, where they're ranked 55th in KenPom. However, they do everything well on D with no glaring weaknesses, but it's not one that's going to bother us with pressure or blocking shots at the rim. So Duke can be had as Shed continues his run on attacking the rim and kicking the ball out to our 3-point shooters. On offense, Duke is exceptional and will pose multiple challenges for our number 2 ranked D. They shoot the ball exceptionally well, ranking 18th in effective field goal percentage, according to KenPom, being equally adept at both 3-point and 2-point range. Duke also takes care of the ball, ranking 23rd in turnover percentage, and offensive rebound reasonably well, ranking 78th. Fortunately, unlike A&M, they don't take it hard to the rim for free throws, ranking 224th in free throws as a percentage of offense. So our bigs shouldn't face the kind of foul trouble we did versus A&M. Key for us will be playing very disciplined D, challenging every shot because we won't get many chances with turnovers. KenPom suggests a 3-point win versus Duke. I believe it will actually be a little bit greater than that. They may be hot as of late, but I also believe that they haven't faced a defense like ours. I'm predicting a 6-point win, 75-69. Now, if we figure a way to advance, I'm expecting to face Marquette. Won't get into as much detail here since it's one round out, but Marquette is very similar to Duke on offense. Great shooting team at number 15 in effective field goal percentage, but as Bill had mentioned, they don't offensive rebound at all. On D, they rely on turning you over. They're ranked 20th in turnover percentage D, but are also not a great defensive rebounding team, ranking 278th. So it will give us an opportunity to feast on offensive rebounds. If we play Marquette, they're the number 2 seed I wanted all along. A perfect matchup for us if we get the chance to advance and play Marquette. KenPom, if I'm doing the math correctly, would predict roughly a 6-point win. I'm forecasting a bigger margin, probably something around the 10-point win, 78-68. So next, let's revisit our Sweet 16 projections. Who do you guys have left and who's gone? Also based on... Well, you don't have to go into the details, but at the very least, we should go through our new projections out with the 16 remaining teams. Tom, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll take the South first. I had U of H playing Kentucky, I believe it was.
In this so did I.
No, that's
that would be one round out.
I had U of H and Duke, and I had Kentucky playing Marquette, and I had Kentucky advancing, and U of H playing Kentucky. Midwest, I had Purdue and Tennessee. I had Gonzaga actually losing that first game. Who they play again? I can't remember.
McNeese State, I think, right? Was it
Who was
McNeese? Was it McNeese?
Yeah. I had McNeese winning, and they got clobbered. But
so did I.
Creighton and Tennessee, I think I wasn't as bullish on Creighton as y'all were. I can't remember who I had beating them, but I had Tennessee in there, and I can't remember the other team I had in there. Go to the West, I had UNC and Arizona playing. I did not have Clemson. I think I had Baylor in that one, and UNC. I think I had UNC and Bama in there too, with UNC winning. Going to the East, UConn. I had them facing Iowa State, but I didn't have Iowa State facing Illinois. I can't remember it. Once again,
BYU.
I can't remember who I had beating Illinois.
BYU.
I didn't have San Diego State making it this far either.
Yeah. Okay. But how about with the new teams that have made it? What are your projections moving forward? Let's do a reprojection for the Sweet 16.
Okay. I'll go South, U of H, Marquette, U of H advancing. Midwest, Purdue and Tennessee. I have Purdue advancing. I did all chalk. UNC, Arizona in the West, UNC advancing, and then UConn, Iowa State. I have UConn advancing, even though I'd like to see Iowa State or Big 12 brethren advance. But I think it's going to be a close game. But I think in the long run, UConn is just going to be a little bit too much for Iowa State.
Okay, then how about in the Final Four?
All the way to the final?
Yeah, all the way to the final in winner.
We beat Purdue and make it to the final. UConn beats UNC, and then we beat UConn in the final. And I went all chalk for the Final Four teams.
Nice.
In the last episode. And then I had us playing UConn in the final in that one too, and U of H win. Just finding a way to win. No rhyme or reason why I think they're going to win, but sometimes you have these seasons where when you win the championship, you have to have certain things fall in place, and I'm thinking it's our turn. We've had enough stuff in our athletic history that's never bounced right, and I think this is the time it finally goes the right way.
Love it. How about you, Bill?
Okay, well, the East, I had UConn. I had UConn. I had Iowa State beating BYU, and ultimately I had I think I had UConn over San Diego State, and then I had UConn over Iowa State. I'm really wavering on that going forward. In the West, oh God, I mean, we could spend half an hour talking about all my misses here. I mean, my 4 teams in the West, I had Carolina losing to Grand Canyon.
Oh.
And I had New Mexico beating Nevada, both of whom lost in the first round. I had Nevada going to the Final Four. I had New Mexico going to the Final Four.
Oh, my
Like
gosh.
I said, out in the first round. So disaster there. The South, of course, U of H beating Duke. And I had Marquette beating Tech, who, of course, lost in the first round. I did not think Kentucky would go far. One of the rare things that I was on point with. But and then the Midwest, I had Purdue playing Gonzaga. I did like Gonzaga. And I did have Colorado State beating Tennessee.
That's right. You guys love the Mountain West Conference.
I'll take.
They didn't do so well.
I'll take the credit and or the blame for that because I was all in. I think the only Mountain West team I did not take was Utah State against TCU, and of course they blew them out. So I missed every Mountain West team, but I have Gonzaga beating Purdue, and I have Creighton beating Colorado State, and then Creighton beating Gonzaga to go to the championship game. To redo it based on who's left, I have UConn over San Diego State in the East, 70-64. I have Iowa State 77-67 over Illinois, and I think Connecticut Iowa State is a 1-point game. I mean, I guess I'll stick with Connecticut because I originally picked them, but I'm really wavering on that. In the West, no more New Mexico, obviously. So we've got Clemson, Arizona. I have Clemson losing. I have Arizona beating them by 15.
Yep.
I've got Carolina over Alabama, 92-85. And then I've got Arizona over Carolina, 85-78.
Okay.
Midwest.
That's the Caleb Love Bowl.
Oh,
that's right.
Yeah.
UNC Arizona.
Right. Yep. Midwest, like I said, I've got Gonzaga beating Purdue.
Yep.
I don't understand why everyone was so down on Gonzaga, but I've got them beating Purdue 80-69. Creighton, I've got beating Tennessee. Tennessee's a great defensive team, but I think Creighton can spread them out. Creighton 68-64. And then Gonzaga, Creighton, I think this is a coin flip as well. I'm going to stick with my original pick. I've got Creighton squeaking it out 78-76. I think I've mentioned all of these already, but U of H over Duke, 76-62. I think we win easily. Marquette over NC State, 74-68. U of H over Marquette, 77-68. I think, Steve, you said 78-68, so we're a point off.
Yeah.
And so my final four would be U of H, Creighton, Iowa State, Arizona, and I've got U of H, Connecticut, and U of H winning.
Nice. Love it. So for my March Madness brackets, in the South, I missed on NC State. I think most folks did, which hurt me because I had Kentucky going to the Elite Eight versus us. In the Midwest, I missed on Purdue and the Zags, plus I have Creighton coming out. So a challenge there. In the East, I missed on San Diego State, so I'm still doing okay there. And finally, in the West, I missed on Alabama and Clemson, but I still have UNC alive, and so that's still looking okay. Now, to repick my Sweet 16, I would have, as we had already covered in the South, UH over Duke, Marquette over NC State, then UH over Marquette. In the Midwest, I've got Purdue over the Zags, Creighton over Tennessee, and then Creighton over Purdue. In the East, I've got UConn over San Diego State, ISU over Illinois, and then ISU over UConn. Going to stick with my Big 12 brethren here.
I like it.
West, I've got UNC over Bama, Arizona over Clemson, and then UNC over Arizona. Final Four, UH over Creighton, and then UNC over UConn, with a championship game of UH over UNC. So, should be fun. Looking forward to it. So that's it for this episode 23 of the No Conference for Old Men podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. And again, would really appreciate it if folks would follow, subscribe, or collect our podcast, depending on your podcast platform of choice. We are also available via the Republic of Football podcast feed from the folks at Dave Campbell's Texas Football as their only basketball-centric podcast, or at the GoCoogs.com website for those that prefer to digest the content that way. We appreciate the continued support from all. Also, please give us a follow on our Twitter account, No Conference for Old Men. Thank you all again for listening, and be on the lookout for our Final Four episode next week, where we'll again try to publish it on Tuesday ahead of all the Final Four festivities. So please be on the lookout to download and listen as the episode drops. Take care, everyone.